darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
Trump's successful bid for the U.S. presidency has shown us all that the media can no longer expect to demonize with impunity. There is now a large and growing population of people who do not buy the media narrative. But can the media correct the mistake it made in painting the now leader of the free world as literally worse than Hitler? Does it want to? And will Trump oppose the forces creating this new tribalism? Will he reverse the erosion of due process for the presumptively innocent and sex crime allegations? Will he get rid of the Dear Colleague letter? Will he end teaching cult identity politics in universities? The more the populace can't reconcile with each other, the more civil unrest and the stronger and more authoritarian the government has to become to create order. It's the Gaddafi principle. Gaddafi said of his own strongman rulership, his country didn't have the civil society necessary to support a modern democracy because without authoritarianism it would devolve into tribal conflict, which was exactly what happened when he was deposed. You now have substantial groups who want to liquidate the U.S. Republic and replace it with democratic mob rule. Democratic mob rule will devolve into a series of authoritarian dictators because people will eventually get tired of the chaos and the descent into tribal warfare based on ideological and identitarian politics. But that tribal warfare will have torn your civil society to shreds, leaving nothing left but scorched earth. Your only recourse will be increasingly draconian dictators or worse, theocrats who rule based on moral principles established by the religious left. The next time around, if we don't oppose identitarian and ideological tribalism, there will be more people sucked into this cultish inability to get along and accept difference of opinion while retaining basic faith in each other's humanity. This ideological tribalism is based on the idea that people who disagree with you are subhuman, they are deviant, immoral, unacceptable, a scourge, all the things we used to think our tribal rivals were. And the less we get along, the more we set the stage for a heavy-handed mummy government who will step in, tell stepdad to beat us into compliance. The most Trump will do, in my opinion, is provide a temporary relief from the government's stranglehold over the resource-producing classes of America and prevent war with Russia, which is significant. Incidentally, a stupid, unending war with an evenly matched superpower is another way to keep local ideological tribalism in check. Expect our boys and men to be sacrificed in the future because of our inability to discuss things rationally and accept questions to our axiomatic beliefs. This is not a victory, at least not a long-term one. This election lays bare how much work we need to do to oppose ideological tribalism that's going to tear us apart. Never before in U.S. history has a significant portion of the populace rioted against the result of an election and regarded the winners as subhuman scum, just because they disagree ideologically. Trump may be a victor of the working class, resource creators over the intelligentsia and the government-dependent and the media, but the regressive left has also seen its own victory. They now have a moderately sized army of cultists who want to see liberty burn rather than have to deal with sinners who disagree with them. This is how theocracies form, around a hard core of believers who refuse to regard unbelievers as human. And with every college classroom and K-12 school curricula devoted to gender studies and the ways boys are tools of Satan and girls helpless victims of boys, both of whom can only found their salvation in the Church of Feminism, that theocracy grows. Whatever happens, Trump's win does prove there's a significant group of people no longer listening to the media. But it also proves that there's a group of people listening too much. All right. Before we get into it, this is Honey Badger Radio 73, how the left will subvert Trump's win. But before we get into it, I just want to point out that Tyler Preston has been banned from YouTube as a result of multiple third-party claims that he's violated copyright. This is not a good thing. We found out about it because one of our patrons was trying to download his Honey Badger's Islam apologetics video and was unable to find it or even find Tyler Preston's account. So I just wanted to bring attention to this, signal boost it a bit. And Hannah, did you have any words on that before we get into the main topic?
I know very little more about it than you do, but the thing that I saw when I saw that it had been banned was that it was, like you said, multiple third-party reports, and I'm thinking about this, and if that means what I think it means, and I'm pretty sure it means that they are allowing people to report copyright infringement against other people when they don't own the copyright for the thing they're reporting, which, in my opinion, that's just going to turn Twitter into a new, even bigger false copyright infringement claim war zone, because it's going to be more abused than it is going to be used to prevent people from infringing on actual copyright. It's going to be used to shut people up, just like it has with Tyler Preston.
You said Twitter. Did you mean YouTube?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I meant YouTube.
I want to make sure.
You know what? They're all becoming the same thing. I mean, Google's got its fingers in every single one of them, and it seems like ever since Google got its fingers into everything, it has all become like this. And the fact is, you know, if somebody felt that it was that necessary to shut him up, he must have touched a nerve.
Well,
And that means he may have been very much right about something that somebody didn't want him to be right about.
Shock.
of
It's the
Google.
Islam apologia. We really are.
I hope none of our fans were involved in that, because that would go against everything that we believe in.
That's what I was going to say. It's entirely possible that it was people who were trying to defend us from his criticisms of our Islam apologia. And, you know, honestly, I want to signal boost this as well. And I know that he has, I have heard through the grapevine that he has another channel up, and maybe we can post that new channel in the
Chat.
show bar.
Give us the name. Give us the name of Tyler
don't
Preston's
have-
new channel.
I don't have the name. I
know, Karen, you don't. I'm asking chat.
Oh, okay. Because I know that there have been a few videos about this by smaller YouTubers like Bane666 and others about this, and they've essentially said, you know, subscribe. Bass Fizz, if that's how you pronounce it. God damn it, Zers! What the fuck? Why would you pick that as your name? But saying that people should go and subscribe to Tyler Preston's new channel. So hopefully,
I'm hearing in chat it's Tyler Preston 20. I'm just going to double.
Well, that's his
check that.
Twitter handle, so possibly.
Let me just double check here. Yeah, that looks like it is. Well, it looks like
Okay,
he's already got a good start on things. He's at 75,000. All right, so I'm going to make sure that goes into our low bar. And if you want to find Tyler Preston's new channel, that will be available to you in the low bar of this video.
yeah, no, and like, as much as I have my differences of opinion with him, I definitely think it's like completely fucking bogus for anybody to flag down his channel based on spurious claims of copyright violation or even bullying. You know, and this kind of harassment and all of these sort of marginal claims that can be, you know, that are open to interpretation and can be used to shut people up who are just being critical. So,
You know, the thing is, if you disagree with something somebody says, disagree with them out loud. Talk to them, comment under their videos. Like, you know, people comment under my videos. There's people who disagree with me vehemently and comment under my videos. And I'm sure everybody else has the same experience here. Don't false flag because you disagree. It's the stupidest way to handle disagreement. You prove somebody wrong by coming up with an argument that shows evidence against what they're saying. You prove somebody right by trying to silence them with censorship.
when you cut out a man's tongue, you're not. So you're
not proving he's a liar.
Yeah, you're telling the world that you fear what he has to say.
All right, so let's get back to the topic at hand. Do you want me to? I put out a lot of
pussy.
Grab him by the pussy. Yes. All right, Karen. Did you want to answer to anything that I've said, including telling me that I'm full of shit?
No, I don't think you're full of shit. Like, honestly, I think that essentially, like, we've seen a balkanization of nationalism. So we've essentially seen, and maybe it's like the mouse experiments, Calhoun's mouse experiments or rat experiments, right? Where you essentially have when everything is essentially easy, right? When you don't have to really struggle for anything that you require to survive, right? Then all of a sudden, there's no need for nationalism. There's no need for national identity. There's no need for a common set of goals and principles that are unique and common to every single person in your country, right? You don't necessarily need to have that. And then you just kind of, you have the luxury of nitpicking over every single little fucking ideological difference, right? Because there's no big baddie. As much as America had 9/11, as much as all of that was like just absolutely atrocious and horrible and a huge wake-up call, right? Life for the average American has pretty much gone on exactly the same way it had before. They're still concerned with the same shit that they were concerned about before, which is like, oh, should I get the Pebble watch or should I get the whatever freaking, should I get the iPhone 5 or should I get the Samsung Galaxy 4, right? This is the kind of when nobody has to actually band together in a large group to like confront an adversary, whether it's hunger or whether it's an existential threat like the aliens descending on us or whatever, right? They are able to balkanize their tribalism into smaller and smaller and smaller sectarian groups, and it's like, this is, I think, what is feeding this is there is no American identity anymore. That's not allowed. It's not allowed because that would be racist against all other nations. But, we can...
Racist.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely racist against all other nations.
Nationalist.
To have a unified American identity where people of all colors have a shared goal, a shared set of principles. That would be racist because it would be racist against other countries because none of the other countries in the world actually pose an existential threat to us. Not one that the average American citizen takes seriously. And I'm going to say this, right? And I'm going to say it with some confidence because I grew up, I was a teenager in the 1980s. I was a teenager when Sting recorded his song Russians, right? Okay, I hope the Russians love their children too, because that's the only thing that will save us, right? There was an actual existential threat between the West and the rest of the world, and there was none of this bullshit about fucking Halloween costumes, because we actually had things to worry about that affected all of us, and affected all of us equally. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, freaking red, yellow, green, blue, or a fucking zombie, right? If a nuke drops on your head, you're dead, right? And you hoped that the Russians loved their children too, because that would be the one thing that would stop them from launching nukes, right? And you knew that your side we love our children, right? And so you hope that the Russians love their children. But when there isn't that outside thing, right, that actually makes people afraid. And like people in the 1980s during, before the wall came down, before Reagan took Gorbachev on a tour of the United States, and Gorbachev was convinced that the tour was not a U.S. Potemkin village, it was actually the U.S., and he was like, oh my goodness, right? Before all of that fell away, there was real fear. There was actual real fear of something outside of the U.S., something outside of the West that actually posed an existential threat to us, right? And there was so much more collective national. There was more patriotism. There was more adherence to a common set of national goals. There was more adherence to a common set of national ideas, principles, what we thought of as rights, right? All of those things. You know, we were protecting democracy. Democracy was the big freaking beatified thing that we were protecting against the threat of the Russians. And we don't have that anymore, right? We have ISIS. They're way the fuck over there. We had one fucking incident of planes flying into buildings. That's not enough to like get us to, you know, to the fucking local Starbucks, right? Like it didn't change anything, right? And because of the fact that we don't have any kind of external existential threat, we are free to attack each other, and the existential threat could be hunger, and you can see people clawing at the idea of an existential threat. You know, climate change, all of these things, right? The environment, all of these. People want an existential threat because it gives them a sense of common purpose and a sense of shared identity, right? But we just don't have it. We don't have one that we've agreed that is, you know, that is actually an existential threat anymore.
Well, we do.
So we do what?
I think you're echoing. We do have the specter of women everywhere in chains.
Okay. Well, yeah, but that's not an existential threat. Well, that's not an external threat. That's a threat that exists equally where we are as it does in the Middle East. It's a threat that exists equally in every single corner of the globe. You heard it, women. There is an epidemic of violence against women across the globe because there is not a single country in which it doesn't exist. Right? So because if there is one country in which one woman gets assaulted, right? There's an epidemic
of violence against women. And you know, the other thing that I figured out, just sorry, Hannah, just wanted to point out, I don't even know if Karen's done yet, so I'm appropriating Karen's time, but yeah, this whole idea that people say the men over there treat their women badly, or the men in the past treat their women badly, so we needed feminism. Well, what you're basically saying is you're also legitimizing feminism here, in this time, in this place. Because the only place and time where men don't treat women, you know, rape and beat them and want to drag their mutilated corpses through their streets and do all of that for no reason, just because they're women, is right. No, it's right here.
No,
right,
it's not.
Where feminism has power.
It's not. It's not. It's not right here where feminism has power, because we still haven't stamped out the epidemic of rape and the epidemic of violence against women. It is still not this place. It is some utopian future. That's where it is. That's the only place that where men could possibly exist in a state of benevolence towards women, right? And not a state of hostility, animosity, and oppression of women, right? That's the only place in some future. Because right now, right here, we're still being told that we live in as much of a patriarchy as ever. Women are as more oppressed than ever, according to Gloria Steinem, right? Like, no, you have to literally believe that a state wherein men do not hate women is some far distant utopian future, right? It's not the here and now. Your father's day, it's not your grandfather's day, it's not your great-grandfather's day. They all hated women and we all hate women. It's some utopian future brought to us by feminism, brought to us by a unilateral and complete annihilation of all traditional norms, of culture, of society, of everything. Right?
Of any possible control or or lack of freedom or restraint on women's behavior. Okay.
Ironically, the reason Hillary didn't get voted in is partially because America does still have a fairly healthy fear of war with Russia. It only took 30 years for half of the country to completely forget that. But of course, if you ask the people who voted for Hillary, why did Hillary not get voted in? Look, it was because she's a woman. Because we live in a white supremacist patriarchy who would never vote a woman into office.
All right, are we done? Are you done, Karen? Are we all done?
I'm done
All right.
for now.
No loud noise to indicate that you're done.
Centipede, bomb, bomb, centipede, bomb, bomb.
There we go. Now there is a massive hole in the mouse experiment theory as far as applying it to humans. Mice, their whole life is about eating and shitting and fucking. And when they're not doing one, they're doing one of the others, or they're asleep. And that's basically it. They don't really have much more to them than that. They don't make their own entertainment. They don't create art. They don't sing. They don't do anything but eat, sleep, shit, and fuck. Humans are complex, and we do a lot of other things. And when we have a good situation, when we have time and lack of fear, that we don't have to struggle for our resources, we create things. We make art, we make music, we make poetry, we make beautiful pictures and ugly pictures and plays and movies and all kinds of things. And that's a confounding factor as far as I'm concerned, in the idea that we have to have a struggle in order to survive. We're good at struggling, and we're good at fighting with each other, which really kind of sucks. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if a time comes that there is peace, that we'll end up descending into some sort of terrible dystopia and destroying ourselves because of it. I think where the monkey wrench comes in with humanity is that we have like a majority of us that's pretty well satisfied to enjoy life and have our families and have our friends and have our entertainment and so on. The ones that the elitists say give them their bread in circuses and they'll let you get away with anything. And then you have the elitists who want to control people, and they want to be, they want to hoard resources. They want to be in charge and large, and they need that tribalism. They need that conflict. They don't need them to be in conflict. They need us to be in conflict, because that makes us easier to control. And it's, this isn't a new idea. This is something that's been discussed before. KGB defector Yuri, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this guy's name right, Bezmenov, Yuri Bezmenov. He actually talked about this years ago. If you look up a video, the video was put up in 2012, but it's a video of an old television program. Former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov explains how to brainwash, I think, a nation was the rest of it, how to brainwash. I don't know, I've got this almost up on the screen here, and how to brainwash a nation, and in parentheses full length. If you look that up on YouTube and you watch, it's not a short video, it's an hour and 20 minutes long, but it is worth watching, because he has predicted everything that is going on now. And what he had said back in 1983 was pretty much to do what the left has done. To create this degree of tribalism, all they had to do was tell us how much we all hated each other. And it didn't really take all that much work. What we had was one person telling one group, everybody else hates you, and you're oppressed, and you deserve reparations, and it's all their fault, and you should hate them for that. And it worked. You know, the next group, same thing. The next group, same thing. Every ethnic group, every sexuality group, every identity. And identity politics, you know, we were, after the civil rights movement, as a nation, we were starting to heal from that stuff. We were starting to grow, and we were starting to become stronger, and that probably scared the shit out of a lot of elitists. And the idea that we might actually become united in the true sense of the word as a nation, that means we would be too strong to take down. There would be no way to turn the United States into anything but what it was meant to be. And they had to do what they did. They had to foster this divisive identity politics that we're seeing today. What social justice came out of, all of that came out of, and I hate to say Marxism, hate to say communism, because everybody sort of thinks of that as this conspiracy theory thing, but the truth is that's where it came from. You know, the truth is none of this is natural. This isn't something that happened because of the natural progress of people's thinking. This is something that happened because there were people out there deliberately stoking these fires in order to keep us from healing as a nation. And that's where we are today, you know. And like, we've gone from Cold War to Clod War. Like, each group fighting to see which of the special snowflakes can be the most short-sighted. We've gotten to a point where not only are we pitting every ethnicity against every other ethnicity, and all of the ethnicities that are non-white against whites, and we're pitting the genders against each other, and we're pitting the straights against the alternate sexuality list that keeps on growing, and now we've started pitting the different sexualities on that list against each other, you know. But we're also, we've gotten to a point where we've got people convinced as a nation that if they don't have their ideology in charge of the country, that the country is just going to sink completely. It'll disappear. You know, and it's how can we be dumb enough to fall for that shit? And yet we have been.
I mean, honestly, like, when George W. Bush got elected, he was literally Hitler, right? You know, when Ronald Reagan got elected, he was literally Hitler. Like, Reagan was going to make everybody homeless, remember? And your grandparents were going to be eating cat food and you know, not being able to get their medications.
The difference, though, this time is that we actually have a bunch. And part of it, I think, is social media and this kind of tendency of, on social media, this ability for mass hysteria to foment itself through social media. So you essentially have these people on Tumblr, these people on Twitter, these people on Facebook and Snapchat and all of these other places, right, where you get your information, you know, by just like a headline, a clickbait headline, and you upvote it or downvote it, whatever, right? But you have this ability now, more than any other time in history, right, for a hysteria to consume an entire nation. Like, I don't have to wait for the 6 o'clock news to find out the latest juicy, salacious, satanic details about the McMartin daycare, right? I don't have to wait till the 6 o'clock news for that, right? I can just look it up online, and I can scream and be appalled and be horrified with all of my friends and have them feed my reaction and have them reinforce it, right?
Well, and there's another aspect to that. Do you remember playing telephone as a kid?
Oh God, yeah, no, and it's like, yeah, no. By the time it gets all the way around,
right. Did you
Yeah, no,
watch the WikiLeaks dumps of the Podesta emails and the Clinton emails and the DNC emails and all that?
Oh, I kept an eye on it, yeah.
Well, in those threads, there was a need for people who were keeping track of the emails and watching the emails and actually publishing them, publishing parts of them that were highlighted and everything, to keep reminding everybody not to just retweet images, because there were a lot of fake ones out there. And what was happening was, some of it was just people making stuff up to be trolls. Some of it was hillbots basically trying to discredit WikiLeaks, and some of it was people that were a little over enthusiastic. But what was happening was there were fake screenshots that were not screenshots. And those were going around and people were retweeting them, and then everybody was saying, oh, WikiLeaks put out fake emails. Well, WikiLeaks hadn't put those out. Those were put out by users on Twitter and some users on Reddit and everything. So there was this constant reminder that had to go on. But by the time that reminder started going around, those were already spread all over the internet. They made it way out there. The thing about the lie going halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its pants, that's what happened there. And it wasn't like in the space of half an hour or an hour or anything. Like, it was like instant. You tweet something and a lot of people are watching that particular hashtag, it can get 1,000 retweets in 10 seconds. So that's part of this.
Yeah, no, but that's also part of the whole Trump is literally Hitler thing. And this is the reason why, when Reagan was elected, when George W. was elected, people gnashed their teeth a little bit and muttered under their breath, right? But they didn't fucking post these unbelievable videos of themselves, like, having panic attacks. They didn't riot in the streets, right? They didn't do any of those things. And I would have to blame the media for a lot of this, because they're blaming Trump's violent and bigoted rhetoric, when in reality every single thing that came out of his mouth, I like Yoo-hoo freaking chocolate beverage, yeah, that would be violent, bigoted rhetoric according to the fucking media. They'd find some way to spin it that way, right? And I'm sorry, but and then they blame all of the freaking Trump protesters' violence on Trump's violent, bigoted rhetoric, and it's like, maybe the thing about these particular protesters might be the same thing as these people posting these videos now, where they're like having absolute, complete fucking meltdowns and calling for ambulances because they're sure they're going to die because Trump won.
Well, this isn't actually the first time that kind of thing has happened. I don't know how much you've read about the Kent State riot, but prior to the 4 dead moment, there was a riot in downtown Kent where they went through and destroyed businesses, they threw things at people, they fought, they blocked streets, they did all kinds of stuff. All the same stuff that is making the news now. And this was something that was probably underreported by the media as well at the time. But I part of the reason I know about it is, of course, I'm an Ohio kid. My parents grew up in Ohio. My mother was from that area, very close to that area actually, and they were there, not at the riots, but they were there in that area. So they actually were in Kent afterwards and saw the damage and the fallout from those riots. And that was not the only place that happened during the Vietnam War. It was over something much more worth protesting, but Americans have done this numerous times. You can go back to Prohibition, when or not the Prohibition, but the temperance movement, when the Women's Christian Temperance Union were going in and breaking up bars with sledgehammers and axes and things like that. This kind of thing is not new here. It's just that now we get to watch it in all of its glory, and now it happens over things that are much, much smaller. not getting your president. And as far as Reagan is concerned, there was quite a bit of special snowflaking after Reagan was elected. My parents went from Democrat to Republican during Reagan's first term. My dad thought it was the end of the world. He didn't special snowflake over it, but he was like, we better prepare for some tough times because this guy is an idiot. Everything that he had learned about economics in school told him that Reagan was going to utterly wreck America's economy. That was the end of America. We were done. No more America after Reagan. And of course, that didn't happen. Everything that he said he was going to do, he did. And it worked the way he said it was going to work. And that pretty much, that and some local politics sort of turned my parents Republican from Democrat. It convinced them. But at the same time, you saw people, like, he may not have been burned in effigy online, but you saw people doing the same kind of thing in their letters to the editor. You saw people doing the same kind of thing. There we go, the Wanderers, the Civil War draft riots in New York City. Yeah, that's another good one to mention. There were a lot of things like this. But with Reagan, you had, we didn't have the internet like we have now. We didn't have the general public using the internet. So whatever the news media wanted to show was what people saw. But with both Reagan and Bush Sr., we had people coming out and saying things about killing the president. We had people coming out and making these predictions that people were going to be homeless. We had people saying, if you supported these guys, you must be a racist because the Republican Party hates black people, which is kind of funny because it was the Republican Party that was the majority of vote in all of history's civil rights law that helped further civil rights up until we started getting into sexual issues. It took sexual issues to put a stop to that. But no, this isn't anything new. It's just, like I said, it's bigger. It's a little bigger, and it's a little dumber. Like I said, it's gone from being the Cold War to the Clod War. But it's just that now it's highly visible. Very visible.
Thank you, Internet.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
Anna wants to say something.
Mount the stage.
Mount it.
That's what I hear. It's my turn to mount. So yeah, no, but overall point to what there's a few things that were mentioned earlier, and pardon my still sick voice, and possible coughing. Sorry about all that. That'll probably be happening throughout the broadcast. But
That's all right.
Since you guys were talking about, I'll bounce off the very latest point, which is kind of the overall point, where I am, on one hand, heartened about these protests, and I'll explain why, but on the other hand, I was just tweeting that watching Twitter, anyway, or watching the internet reaction is pretty hilarious. You have boycotts happening from the left, boycotts happening from the right. There's currently, 2 different companies being boycotted. From each side of the pro-Trump and the anti-Trump, each got a company to boycott currently. And of course, the insane freakouts is what really worried me. I'm on a weird sleep schedule because of work, but I got up right around when the news was being announced, right before Trump won, actually, because I was curious to see. I voted earlier that morning, and also Prop 60 for California was on the table, and I was just, kind of curious to see what was happening. I guess couldn't sleep, and I was watching all of it unfold basically in real time. And as soon as Trump was basically announced, my timeline, which I follow a lot of liberals, which is kind of my side, I ascribe to them, to that side in general. I got nothing but hey, suicide hotlines here, and make sure to hug your loved ones, and just a lot of really seriously Titanic is sinking freak out mode tweets, and it alarmed me. It didn't alarm me quite as much as seeing the divisiveness that followed afterwards, and that's that and Mike Pence are the two things that worry me, is potentially next civil war and someone who Trump has said will be taking care of both domestic and foreign policy, who absolutely I don't think is qualified to be making rules over other people. But that's neither here nor there. People weren't worried about that. They were worried about Trump being president. And once again, this big boogeyman situation of, as you know, Hillary even repeated, this is just something that's been repeated over and over, of sexist, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, like that, you know, I guess string of insults has been used over and over in association with Trump, his presidency, everything he stands for. They stopped attacking even the GOP. They've long ago stopped attacking the Republican Party. They even left the GOP part alone. It was just specifically like Trump, talking about his hair and his looks and about how he is sexist, and nothing really valid about his stance on things. But they were focusing, of course, on his stance on the wall and like all the extreme things, and therefore condensed it down to this string of words that were supposed to tell you everything there's to know about his presidency and his opinion, and all, even though he's married to an immigrant people. Everything was condensed down to this idea of what he stood for. And so, of course, people were losing their minds because it replaced the actual need to think about the opponents or the political candidates. It was very simplified to this racist bigot or vagina, first vagina. And so people were thinking on those terms. And after it was announced that Trump won, people had this idea that gay rights were going to be repealed, and rights for black people are going to be repealed, and like all of these insane things.
It's like, how do they even think that?
Because everything got condensed down to this string of ideology that Trump stands for, and they were told so many times that he's xenophobic, homophobic, racist, sexist, and they were also sort of fan the flames from the liberal side of like the black people and all that. There's just a lot of hysteria and a lot of hyping up of hysteria, focusing on the point of sexism and racism and all of that. So it became a straw man, and it wasn't about the people anymore. Nobody was looking at Hillary's stance on war with Russia and completely Republican sort of ideals that a lot of liberals would be against, but they're not, because she has a D in parentheses next to her name, so she's a Democrat. She's, I'm sure it's fine that she takes money from Saudi Arabia that, like kills gay people. It's fine. She's against Russia that, like we saw on TV, there was a bloody nose for a person at a gay pride parade, and they have something scary about law and gay people in it together. We don't even know what it is, but it's a scary law against gayness. Russia's bad. So like a lot of liberals are not even noticing that she is the ideology that these people are actually trying to put forward. All of it got condensed down to these two ideas that simplified the election for people. And once Trump won, for a lot of these people, a lot of liberals, the fear kicked in, because the idea was, this is not a legitimate, complex person. It's a scary, racist, xenophobic, misogynistic thing. That's entirely what media, as I think Karen mentioned, or maybe Hannah, media was involved in this to the point where they made everything out to be a particular way, and so people can't divorce their feelings from that association to Trump. So yeah, people were literally passing suicide hotline numbers and like just insanity, which I got on the train of tweeting like positivity and optimism, and like, come on, people, like, you're going to survive this. It's okay. We got through Bush. We still have actually majority Democrat, from what I understand. Like a lot of the senators and things that were voted in were like majorly Democratic. So like we still have. And also, as Hannah mentioned, the support for things that liberals would like has come from the Republican sector as well. A lot of these are bipartisan issues. In California, we legalized weed. We went no on Prop 60, and this is from general population that was lied to, that this is about condoms and porn, something that sounds like it's supposed to help people. And, we as performers got on that and managed to spread the word enough to get an edge on. Basically, the point is, the Trump presidency, which it should tell you is well, I have my doubts on that because cynicism always kicks in, but it should hopefully tell you that people still have the power, that voting actually may still do something. I have my doubts on that, but that's not time for this talk about right here, right now. But on the other hand, also remember we all have the power of the individual decision for certain laws like Roe v. Wade and like a lot of other things like gay rights and gay marriage. All of these a lot of times end up being bipartisan issues. So like calm the fuck down, people. And as we're going back to the mouse study, I think Karen had a point, which is not exactly, I don't know if it was what Hannah was responding to necessarily, but I would say that Karen has a point to the effect of when you have a group of beings that have things taken care of for them, as they are very frequently for a lot of these SGW type regressive left mentality people. They live in a bubble of comfort, of basically things provided for them. They don't really know struggle in the sense that a lot of our ancestors and even our immediate parents knew. So it kind of leads to the point where you don't have actual problems, or you're so disconnected also from people that do have to have like 2 or 3 jobs just to get by and who do have problems. You end up in this sort of sphere of over-grooming. That's one of the things that the mice were doing. So basically extreme narcissism, paying attention to oneself, to minute issues. Everything becomes overblown, out of proportion. So becoming huge because there's no real reference to reality and to how difficult things can be. So that, but also, of course, Hannah had a point too, that removing fear and removing the idea of scarcity also actually, for humans, it improves humans' primates type mentality because as beings, the live beings that we are, especially like primates, etc., we have an ability to adapt to a desert versus a jungle sort of conditions because we are roaming, nomadic. There are changes in like what we used to be agricultural, and before that, hunter-gatherer. And so if you go from one place to another, the same color fruit may not be poisonous, or maybe in fact poisonous, something that you used to rely on in one community. Once you had to be moved because you're nomadic, you have to basically readjust to a new environment. And so our genes have an ability to, it's called epigenetics, it involves histones, and basically our genes have an ability to roll or unroll or sort of tighten up areas for gene expression that have best usually suit your environment. And so you can have the same species of like bird or whatever in both the forest and the desert, and they act differently based on their environments because the genes have that ability. So humans will go from being extremely desert mentality like, so extremely competitive, extremely to the point of like leaving the weak children behind, like extremely sort of that kind of harsh human, like do they love their children, right? That sort of mentality in like a desert, no money, no resources, scarcity conditions. And then when you have people in plenty, where there's plenty, there's a lot of, you know, goodwill, there's more, you know, inclusive values, etc. So there's this interplay of these two forces. And when you have certain economic conditions, you have imposed ideas of scarcity. So people's emotions and instincts get triggered or tricked that there's scarcity. And so they end up freaking out and acting weird. And we'd actually see that in the US a lot, the disparity between the rich and the poor, the despairing of the middle class, the 99 versus the 1%, all of that has been giving an extreme, very real sense of scarcity. And so people are acting like in an extremely competitive environment where they're very easily triggered, so to say. And you know, you guys brought up a lot of really good points, and even for Google, like that's true. WikiLeaks pointed out that Google, one of the board members or a chair or something, has wanted to be part of the Hillary campaign since 2014. So I mean, there is, all of it is the status quo. Like that's the bottom line is, as I was mentioning at the beginning, I am heartened to see protests. And I feel like it's great for Trump versus Hillary and all that, because the media and the sort of the establishment tried so hard to have Hillary be popular so that her win, which would suit all of their agendas and needs, would be palatable to all the people because it's what the people wanted. But Trump ended up winning, though he is still the status quo. I mean, if you want to see media blackout, if you want to see a party that people truly don't want to hear about, look at the Green Party. And there's literal events where Jill Stein was going to be, Dr. Stein was going to be on with Bill Maher, and then oh wait, no, they canceled. All of these constant interviews and things like that would give. She even, I bet people don't know this, but Dr. Stein actually filed a legal action against Trump and Hillary on the eve of the election, but nobody's reporting on it. Nobody's talking about it. We don't know practically that there's a third-party system. This election finally, well, not finally, but won again, sort of, because the third-party system was buried for a while. But it brought back, again, the idea that you can have a multi-party system. It's not just two shitty choices, which was everybody's biggest issue this election. But yet still we have a media blackout on the Green Party. We have a blackout on actual change, because Trump is still a millionaire. He is still a Manhattanite. It's still not that, I mean, yeah, it's a far throw from being friends with Kissinger and having mentality of a war criminal, but it's still sort of status quo-ish. I mean, he's a businessman, meaning he doesn't really have it in his platform to be out for the people and for the little guy in favor of doing a good business deal. Like, he's still status quo, so it's good to see people protesting and gathering together, and we have seen a rise in this since Occupy. There's been a greater sort of movement each season, and if we want to change the system, we're going to have to change the system, not just the figurehead and the puppet who's at the head of it, especially someone like Trump, who could potentially be seen, you know, now Trump plus Putin plus, sure, Kim Jong, why not throw him in there? It's the bad, scary patriarchy of the world that, you know, feminism needs to fight against even harder. So it's just, I don't know. I'm trying not to be cynical, which is sort of easy because I see so many people freaking out and losing their mind and being extremely divisive, and I don't want another civil war in this country, at least while I live here. So I'm gonna throw everything I can at, you know, calming people the fuck down and showing them a positive side of everything, because there's so much positive. Like, anyway, this should be very interesting.
Okay, I got one minor correction to make, and it is minor for a reason. The Republicans did take both the House and the Senate. They took the Senate by a gain of 2 seats, which puts them at 51 to 49, and they took the House. They maintained their hold on the House. They've got 239 seats to 193 Democrats. Now, neither of these, they don't necessarily need the Democrats to pass any laws. They could pass laws and send them on to the president's desk to be signed without a single Democrat vote if the Republicans are all unified, which they're not usually. Neither are the Democrats. But the Republican Party, the elites of the Republican Party, the ones that were already in office before Trump ever came along, rejected him from the first. And it's basically because he's a business insider, not a political insider. And he's been criticizing the way the country has been run by both parties for about 25 years.
Yeah, at least
there's old video of him saying that we're getting screwed by all of our politicians. There's old video from back in the 80s of him saying this. You know, so I don't necessarily think he's going to have the degree of cooperation from the Republican Party that, say, a Bush or any Republican senator or any other establishment Republican would have had. So it's still not the end of the world as in terms of, like, if he comes up with something stupid, just flat out stupid, he's not going to get their cooperation with it.
He's going to be held accountable.
Yeah, and if he comes up with something that they're going to look at and say, well, the American people are going to get pissed as fuck at us if we do this, they're not going to vote for it.
Well, one of the most telling things that I think came up in this campaign was when he was asked, would you launch nuclear weapons? And he said, I wouldn't take it off the table. Right? I wouldn't say yes or no. It's why would you even have them if you're not willing to launch them? Right? Okay. You're not going to actually freaking launch. You're not going to have nuclear weapons if you there's no circumstance conceivable that you would never use them, right? Or that you would ever use them. And that was, you know, there was this major panic in Canadian media. Trump's going to like nuke France. Trump's going to nuke Russia. Trump's going to nuke everybody, right? Okay. Now,
that's just like the Bill Burr thing. There's never an excuse to hit a woman.
Yeah,
really?
when the CBC did a radio show It's The Current. It's a very social justice-y, feminist-y radio show, and I'm listening to it, and they actually had a guy on there that they were interviewing who was totally against Trump, right? Absolutely could not stand Trump. Trump would be the worst thing for America, blah, 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 right? Spent the last 28 years being one of those guys in the silos 14 hours a day with the key, right? And the launch codes. Okay? That's what he's done for the last 28 years. And he's like, and this the topic of this radio program is Trump going to bring about a nuclear holocaust, right? Okay? And they're trying to work everybody up. And this guy, Trump, right? He's being interviewed, and he's like, oh, yeah, no, I think it's dangerous for him to have that kind of authority. I think it's dangerous for him to have his finger on the button. And they're like, okay, well, asked him, okay, so what, able to unilaterally make a decision to, launch a nuclear strike against some other country? And he said, well, no, he wouldn't. Like, there's all kinds of checks and balances there, and there's all kinds of safeguards there, and there's the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and, frankly, if he just decided that, like, the president of France pissed him off one day and he was going to nuke France because, I don't know, the French president looked at Melania a little bit, sideways.
Because of all those viruses in your computer?
He would be relieved of duty in 2 seconds, confined to quarters under fucking guard, and somebody else would take control of the country. Like, there is no fucking way for the president of the United States, no matter who he is, to just decide, you know what, I'm pissed off at these people at the moment, I'm going to launch nukes.
Yeah, there's no button.
Right?
The myth of the button. There's no button.
This isn't even a new thing.
From getting everybody all fucking worked up, that Trump could just literally stab his fucking chunky finger on a fucking candy-colored button, right? And bring about the end of the fucking France. Fuck them.
But this isn't the first time that argument has been used. Okay, and this goes right back to what I said before about this happening with Reagan. I don't know if anybody remembers the music video to Genesis Land of Confusion with the puppets. I'm the only one that remembers that, right?
I vaguely remember that.
The person whose parents got MTV banned in her neighborhood is the one person who remembers the fucking video. Okay, that's cool. But in that video, they portrayed Ronald. He was attacked as being old and senile and warmongering and all kinds of things. And what they did in that video was they portrayed him as rolling over in his sleep and mistaking the nurse button for the nuke button and blowing up the world. So this isn't new. This is old hat. They've been doing this forever. Like forever. And both sides have been doing that. I mean, Walter Mondale, when he ran against Ronald Reagan, Walter Mondale was going to get rid of all of our nukes, and then Russia was just going to come in unopposed because nukes were the only thing we had, and the rest of the military didn't count. And they were just going to come in unopposed and make us all communists the next morning. That was the opposing viewpoint when Reagan was running. And so, I mean, we had this over and over again. We've had this every election. But yeah, this was like this is not new. But the other thing I wanted to point out, Anna mentioned about third parties, and that's really an important thing. And I don't think people realize the importance of it. But we had more than 2 choices in this election. And unfortunately, only 2 out of the many choices we had a significant chance to win. And part of the reason for that is because the rest of the choices had no visibility. And what's happened in the United States is we've gotten to a point where our news media is allowed to decide which candidates we get to hear from. That's wrong. Now, on the internet, we have a much better chance. But not everybody does that. Not everybody looks stuff up online and does their homework and learns about all of the candidates and makes their decision that way. We are still in a situation where a large portion of the country watches what goes on television and makes their decision based on that. So they watch the debates and they watch the ads and so on.
Or if they do go online, they only go to the places that are essentially online versions of television.
Yeah,
Because those are places they feel like they can trust.
So there's two possibilities going on here. You know, I've got like people in the chat going, Gary Johnson is a moron. Okay, so if Gary Johnson is a moron, all of us should have had the chance to see that. We should have had the chance to see him fuck up so badly that everybody would know, well, no, this guy's not really a good alternative. And the same thing with all of the other alternative candidates. This is something that we should be prepared as a people of a nation to deal with. We should be pressuring our news media and even our legislators on this. If somebody is going to have the legal right to host an official debate, they should not be allowed to say, but these candidates are excluded. These candidates that got met all of the criteria for making an official run for president, they're excluded. They're not allowed to talk. Only these two parties are allowed to talk. They should not be allowed to do that, because that gives them control over which set of candidates we're choosing from.
Can I add something?
You know, it would make the debates longer, but we should be prepared to watch that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick about the third party. I watched a couple of interviews with some libertarian folks, like the Gary Johnson's Webb guy who was running with him. And according to the numbers, the Libertarian Party had higher turnouts voting for them than they have had in forever. And there was only one state, I want to say it might have been Ohio, but in one state they did really, really well. Like, not obviously nowhere near what Trump or Clinton was doing.
Probably New Hampshire.
It was, I think,
probably.
No, I think it was actually like Ohio, like a middle, like Midwest state. I'm pretty sure it was one of those short states with like 4 letters. So Ohio, Utah, or the Iowa or something. Anyway.
Well, we're the only one in the Midwest out of those that you mentioned.
So the point is this time around, probably not. But I think that with the internet, more and more people are talking about third-party options. And I think that is a good thing. Like, I tend, in terms of my values, I tend to lean libertarian more than anything else. But this year, it was just not worth it to take the risk. So I voted Trump, because I think that what he stands for is way more than just like he doesn't stand for the Republicans. He just joined them because he knew that was the best way he could have a chance. They didn't like him from the beginning because he's not one of them. He's not really in there. And then he demolished them and he made them all look foolish. And then he moved on to go after the Democrats as well. So this is just a sign that no matter what, people in general, most of them aware that while he ran under the Republican ticket, he's not really a Republican in terms of his values and in terms of being a part of that same machine. He just did that because he knows that it doesn't work. Like, if he would have ran independent, he would have had no chance, because he wouldn't have gotten the exposure, and people would have been like, libertarian, what's that? Or Green Party, what's that, right? So,
actually, I'm looking at the New York Times results, and it's New Mexico. Gary Johnson took 9.3% of the vote in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And then this is interesting as well. Evan McMullen took 20.4% of the vote in Utah.
Yeah.
So that's another alternative. McMullen took 6.8 in Idaho. Johnson took 5.3 in Wyoming, 5.6 in Montana, 6.3 in North Dakota. So this is, even if he didn't overall, that's all higher than what he took in Ohio, 5.6 in South Dakota. Mm-hmm. So he did take quite a bit of votes in a number of different states.
Yeah, that means it could become a serious party in the next 4 years. And this is how it's going. I think that this is the This is a good thing. It just might not happen as fast as we'd like. But I think that when the stakes are as high as they are this time around, I personally couldn't do it. I had to think about the long term.
Yeah, but we do need to stand up for our right to hear from these people.
Absolutely.
Because, and the fact is, even if they're wrong, or even if they're not qualified, or even if there's something that makes us decide, well, this isn't the candidate for me, that decision shouldn't happen because we don't know enough about them, or we haven't seen, enough about them. They haven't gotten enough time to talk, or whatever. That can happen because we do know enough about them and we don't think that they're great. But it's not right for it to be happening because they don't get to participate in the debates and they don't get as much airtime on the news.
Agreed.
Can I point something out?
I want to make a quick joke. N.C. Clark said, "Is Hillary ever going to run for anything in her life?" I would say, hopefully, the police. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to point out this discussion that we're having with the absence of the tag words vagina and misogynist. We're actually having a discussion of the issues and the candidates, the issues, the way that the democracy is run. Is there this discussion, like this kind of a discussion, anywhere else?
Yes, I think there's this kind of discussion on Scott Adams' blog, the creator of Dilbert. I think there's this kind of discussion on Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report. I think that there is this kind of discussion of complex. Philip DeFranco, for fuck's sake, he does YouTube news. He's YouTube news, and he's more sensible than 99% of other people in terms of just, saying, yeah, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, right? That's your decision, and blah, blah, blah. Incidentally, Philip DeFranco was not invited to the big YouTube party where they filmed the big YouTube rewind video type thing, okay? Even though he's been on here since 2007 or whatever, and he's got millions of subscribers, and he won YouTube awards just a few months ago, okay? He was not invited because he was, okay, in his words, hypothetically, possibly approached by certain YouTube people who wanted him to make a video endorsing Schmillery, and he refused. Okay. And now he's uninvited to this big fucking thing where all the popular YouTubers they participate in this thing. He's not invited anymore because he declined to make a schmidio for Schmillery. And that was not okay with YouTube, who is owned by Google.
All right. Okay, but we should probably get into the things that Brian has prepared for us.
Okay.
To look at.
No.
Yes, you've prepared stuff, Brian.
Anything if it's not
Were you just trolling me?
If it's not the Doge nipples,
No, it's
nobody's gonna understand that reference.
As much as you want it to be about that, it's not.
No, look, anybody who is looking at his avatar right now will understand the reference.
Yeah, but nobody will be.
Well, they can't see it now. Oh. They've seen it before.
Okay.
They've seen them, but they're paws, not nipples. Jennifer, they're paws, right? Right? Okay. So, God, what has the reaction been since people found out about Trump's election? It has, I think, meltdown is an understatement. So, I will say this though. There have been, people are losing their shit all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Reddit. The fucking media has gone insane. All of them, essentially, most of what their freak out comes from is that they didn't think it was possible. They didn't think that he could win. They were convinced that this was like going to be a landslide victory for Clinton, and that no one in their right. No, I know.
Who the fuck was telling?
The media was.
This is crazy. Like, okay. Here's the thing. Here, just let me get this out right now.
All right.
Okay, now if every single media source that I looked at was telling me that my candidate was 98% guaranteed to get in, I don't really need to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's in the bag. We're good. We don't have to sweat
Total
it.
fucking backfire,
Yeah.
people. Why would... This is the thing. And the media was doing it to demoralize... If it was not just an honest mistake, which it might have been just an honest mistake by a bunch of delusional people who have no ability to see reality, okay? It might have been an honest mistake by a bunch of fucktards. Okay, but if it wasn't just an honest mistake, it was an attempt to demoralize the other side. It was an attempt to demoralize Trump supporters.
Yeah.
This is not a battle that you can win.
Just
field,
forget it.
right?
The polls are in, and you are still losing.
Stay home, open that fucking bottle of pumpkin whiskey and just start swigging. Okay? Now,
Pumpkin whiskey, that's unusually specific.
Well,
Because
it's the time of year.
Mike left half a bottle of pumpkin whiskey here, and I have yet to actually drink it. But
It's very nice. You should.
It's very nice. Sounds good.
Okay, can I just... Karen, just a sec. Can you move the window over a little, Brian, because you can't actually see the tweet?
Oh, no, this is just the way that this is laid out. These aren't the tweets. This is like a piece of... This isn't the tweets.
I think we get the idea. We get the idea from what's left over. That man will never not racist, misogynist.
This isn't a question of like whether or not you can see it, because this is just like the title image for this article. Thank you,
let's
Age of
get into the
Shitlords. All right. So anyway, my point is, I get what Karen is saying. My point is that the
most
media,
complacent army is the one that thinks that they're guaranteed to win.
Yeah.
And then they never even bother to put on their armor, let alone take up their arms.
So let's look at a couple of tweets. Now, of course, there's the infamous Lacey Green tweet. We are now under total Republican
Fuck you,
rule.
white America!
Yes. Fuck you, white America.
Okay, all right, guys. Let's get through actually reading the tweet, but I nominate Karen.
One thing. There was somebody posted in another chat, and I don't remember which one it was. She had a tweet prior to the end of the election about it's going to be, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay, peaceful, and then the election takes place, and then she's all like, fuck you!
You're sitting.
That's exactly what happened.
And I'm just going to tell you that you might want to mute because you're. Yeah, thanks. There's something wrong with your end. It's the interference is pretty bad.
No.
Okay, Karen.
It was just,
Read that
No,
tweet.
it was actually... Oh, you want me to read the tweet?
I want you to read the tweet in your own style.
We are now under total Republican rule. Textbook fascism. Fuck you, white America. Fuck you, you racist, misogynist pieces of shit. Good night.
Good night. All right, so that's Lacey Green. We already know where she stands ideologically, so.
Yeah.
Bass-
I refuse to claim that racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, disgusting excuse for a human soul as my president. Hashtag not my president.
Okay, next one. Go ahead, Karen.
I refuse to look up to a president who treats his people like actual garbage. He is not my president. Hashtag.
The brave soul went to Twitter to make his opinion known.
Okay, can we get a mic in on one of these?
All right, let's see.
Yes, Mike.
You want to do?
Mike.
Oh god, the next one is that chick who went completely fuck nuts on camera.
It looks like the woman who did.
That man will never represent me because I'm not racist, misogynist, scared, or uneducated. Yeah, you're not scared at all.
So this means that people who did vote are racist, misogynistic, scared, and also uneducated. This is the reason why they came out and beat you, because you insulted them over and over. You talked about white privilege, you talked about male privilege, you talked about the white cis heteropatriarchy, and you did it all from your smug, elitist, fucking superior self. Like you went to Yale or Harvard or whatever fucking college, and you like, I know how the world works. I'm 20, I've got it all figured out. And all of the regular sort of salt of the earth, flyover country people, the blue collar workers that are just trying to get through their day and put food on the table, they all voted against your candidates. And it may not be specifically because of what social justice warriors did, because probably they're not seeing a lot of this shit. But they looked at the media's at, like, nobody trusts it. Their approval is at like 30-something%, which is still way, way too high, but nobody likes them. But I think it's a combination of factors. But the fact that these people are just fucking shocked by this, I find hilarious. Because that means they weren't paying attention or trying to learn anything outside their bubble.
Because their media was telling them that it was a 98.8% chance that Hillary would just, like, take it in a landslide.
Yeah.
So, of course, they were shocked. Because their media has been lying to them this whole time. And this is what drives me freaking crazy about this entire campaign. And, you know, like, there are things to criticize about Trump. There absolutely are, right? But every single fucking time I fact-checked one of these bombastic, hyperbolic claims about how he's the next fucking Hitler or how he rapes women or whatever, right? It amounted to, like, nothing.
Yeah, fucking WikiLeaks tried to find stuff and they couldn't find anything. That has to tell you something.
No, they found something on Hillary, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because there is shit on Hillary. All right, next one. All right, Mike.
The Chris Schleicher one. Great name.
Yeah.
Please hug your LGBT friends, your non-white friends, your female friends, your non-Christian friends. America just told us we don't matter.
Oh God. Oh my God.
Non-Christian friends.
Yeah, non-Christian.
Trump isn't exactly. I mean, he's got to be the least religious president there's ever been, right?
I don't even know if he believes in God. He says he does, right?
Yeah, and he's gone to churches and stuff.
Me as the guy who goes to church under protest because his wife drags him there.
Okay. Can I just want to bring something up that was brought out in the sidebar, our private sidebar. And it apparently went through the chat as well. DY0311031. I'm not going to repeat that. I thought Trump's triumph over a rather professional Republican Party pretty much proved that fucking with the LGBT people is political suicide. Did Trump actually, I mean, it was one of the reasons the Republicans didn't like Trump is because he's just not, towing the line when it comes to...
Yeah, he's not, no, he doesn't play ball in terms of what like, this is why Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz said, well, I'll never endorse this guy, although Ted Cruz did end up endorsing him later. But beforehand, they said they wouldn't because he's not really a Republican to them. And they're basically putting him through purity tests. And part of it has to do with, you know, in their mind, the United States is a Christian nation, founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs, etc., and so on, and they don't think he's Christian enough to represent them. Well, that's part of it, anyway.
Okay, but...
Oh, well, I'm gonna contest a little bit of that, just from some involvement with the party, and from having watched what happened when Bill Clinton was accused of sexual misconduct and how the Democrats responded by outing all of the Republicans who were gay or having affairs. And the thing is, the Republican Party has an establishment just like the Democrat Party has an establishment. There are establishment Republicans and there are rogue Republicans. There are establishment Democrats and there are rogue Democrats. And then there are ideologues on both sides in both sections of both sides. And I think what happened with Trump is that he was not really part of any of those cliques. And since he was not part of any of those cliques, the Republicans rejected him from the outset. But the people didn't, because the people are tired of the cliques.
Well, what I found most interesting about Trump and LGBT issues is that in his acceptance speech at the RNC, when he accepted his candidacy, he said, he essentially listed all of the different groups that he is with. He's with every, for every freaking parent who dreams for their child and every child that dreams for their future, I'm with you, right? For all of our LGBTQ citizens, I'm with you. And he got massive fucking cheers from the audience. And then he said, and it warms my heart or something like that I got cheers for saying that, right?
Yeah.
From a Republican crowd, from a crowd of grassroots Republicans, not the establishment, but the actual, just the membership of the Republican Party, cheered him for saying that. Cheered him for saying he would protect the rights and the safety of LGBTQ Americans, right? And he got, this is not something that the Republican Party is ever going to be able to fully recover from. They're never going to be able to get back to Mike Huckabee and, the whole idea that the gays are like, ruining America and all of that. It's never going to go back, right? He single-handedly shifted the entire Republican platform in that moment on LGBTQ rights, because he essentially got the cheers from the grassroots when he said that, right? And so this asshole, Chris Schleicher, he doesn't fucking know what the fuck he's talking about. This is a guy who is taking the Republican Party into an age of acceptance and tolerance of LGBTQ people.
Yeah. Also, to clarify, it was also probably mainly so one of the reasons why guys like Shapiro and Cruz and even Crowder didn't like Trump had to do more so with his trade policies or the things that he wanted to talk about with trade. So they're not, these are different things. They prefer free trade over fair trade. So thank you, NC Clark, for clearing it up. I figured she would fucking throw the chancla if I was out of line, so I'm hit. But what Chris Schleicher is responding to is not Trump's actual policies, and this is most of what these people are freaking out about is not to do with Trump himself at all, but more so the straw man that the media created. And when I say the media, I don't just mean the news media. I'm talking about YouTube, I'm talking about academia, I'm talking about like these faux news like night shows like John Oliver and Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart and all these people and Samantha Bee that they've just churned out week after week after week, and then stand-up comedians, they use it in their material, and then YouTubers use it, and these like rags on the internet use it. So after a while, you just have this gigantic cacophony that's telling you what Trump stands for, what he is, and it doesn't actually reflect him at all. And you haven't like bothered to go and find anything else because to you it seems like this is the narrative everywhere. Now this Al Jazeera, fucking Huffington Post videos, whatever, ATTN, they're just pumping this out daily, just bombarding people. And they don't question it. So all of a sudden, you get this idea that he's somehow anti-LGBT, even though you mentioned that speech. I watched that today too. He was also referring, and I wonder how they process this shit. He was referring to also protecting LGBT people from radical Islamic terrorism. And he used the Orlando shooting as an example of what needs to be done. And they cheered for it, but I don't even know how these people would process that, because it's like you have to hold these two ideas in your head at the same time, hence why he said hug your LGBT friends and also your non-Christian friends, because he's not talking about the Jews. The Jews are fine. He's probably talking specifically about Muslims and atheists. So anyway, somebody wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I think we need to wrap up. But it's like they collared him with a tag, and everybody responds to the tag. They do not respond to the actual content of what he says, positive or negative. I mean, it doesn't even have to be positive, but there's nothing to what he's actually saying or what he's actually going to do. Mm-hmm. It's just the tag, and that is the stupidest way to do business. Go ahead, Mike.
And by the way, Chris, there's one group of friends you neglected to mention. I don't know if you forgot to include your Muslim friends, or if you just realized how difficult it is to put that in the same paragraph as your LGBT friends.
Well, but they're included with the non-Christians, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't.
Because
I mean,
Muslims are exactly the same as atheists. We all believe the same things.
yes.
Okay,
You
let's.
see the point I'm making, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we
You're
do
gonna
see the
protect
point.
your LGBT friends from the people who want them dead. It's the candidate who won.
Yeah, I know. Like, this is absolutely what's really freaking interesting. Like, protect your LGBT friends from the guy who said to the Republican Party, brought them into the party, and basically said, this you got to deal with these people now, Republicans, and you got to accept them, otherwise we're not going to go forward. And you're going to look at him and say, this is the person that LGBTQT, whatever, has to be protected against. But not the people with a book that says kill them.
Yep.
It boggles. It boggles. But
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to follow the Quran precisely.
Hashtag not all.
Not all, of course.
Well,
but-
no, I mean, like, this is really the
Sorry,
thing that,
I
like,
need to appease the people who are going to now call me an Islamophobe.
yeah,
and
no,
Islam apologist.
because if we're not Islam apologists, we're Islamophobes, right? It's just like Tuesday,
We
Thursday.
walk the razor's edge, Karen.
Does
Yeah,
that
yeah,
make us?
but,
Does that make us what Islamophobe apologists?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh god! But what gets me is
Islamic
that, like,
alligators.
I know so many moderate Muslims, right, who don't have that they're happy to be in Canada. They are overjoyed to be in Canada. They don't want anything to do with ISIS. They don't want anything to do with any of that coming over here and fucking with their lives and their ability to run their freaking barbershop or whatever, right? Their coffee house, whatever it is, right? Whatever business, whatever job they have, right? And they work alongside gay and bisexual people every fucking day and treat them with dignity and respect, and they don't shit on them. There are moderate integrated Muslims here in Canada who are like, yes, this is totally, like, gay people, whatever you want to do in your own bedroom, fine, right? I don't want ISIS over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Are they Islamophobes too?
okay, Brian, one more, and then we gotta
All right.
hit
Well,
the streets.
yeah, we got to take off here. So we can bring up one other thing that's happening. There's actually a couple things. I want to quickly throw out there. There have been a few. As soon as this happened, all right, the next fucking day, there are people on social media making claims that all of a sudden there's like these rampant white men with "Make America Great Again" hats running around causing havoc. And one woman wrote a post where, some dude catcalled her on the street, and when she was like, "Oh my God, why'd you do that?" or whatever, he was like, "Hey, it's America. We can do whatever we want. Trump 2016." It was like this like crazy story that I'll take things that never happened for 500, Alex.
Well, I would like to see some of this on actual footage.
Yeah,
or evidence.
no, they're not going to do that. Like, no one's done that yet. They've all just told these stories and said this is totally happened. And if you don't believe me, you're a fucking misogynist, because listen and believe. There was another woman who said that she was with her boyfriend and some dude grabbed her by the pussy, who was wearing a MAGA hat, and then ran off because he said it's a free country and I can do that, or something like that. And then she
was just flapping off down the street.
She was just walking with her boyfriend, but her photo. She's like this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be really mean. She's a land whale. There's no way this happened. So.
Well, at least not grabbing by the pussy and flapping or running down the street with her.
How would you be able to find
Well,
it?
you wouldn't be able to find it without a sack of flour.
Not to mention that most guys, if some guy came up and grabbed their girlfriend like that, would punch the person who did it.
Yeah, like
most guys would defend their girl. This is pretty much the standard. He wouldn't have been able to just go running down the street. He would have had her boyfriend on his back, beating the crap out of him.
No, the boyfriend was just gobsmacked. He didn't know what to do. There was no more of the story. There was no fight or anything. And then there was this Middle Eastern girl who claimed that Trump supporters attacked her because she was wearing her hijab, and they yanked it off, and they shouted racial expletives and took her wallet and left, and they were wearing Trump hats while they were doing it. It's just this crazy shit. And wait, but later this was proved to be false, and she actually ended up confessing that she lied about it. So there are these fabricated bullshit things that are happening, and it's basically like why don't they have
video proof?
Well, because these aren't happening.
The only people who have video proof of violence are the people who have had seen violence being engaged in by Hillary supporters against Trump voters.
Yeah, but there is a video of a dude that got pulled out of his car and the shit kicked out of him because he's a Trump supporter.
And there was the video of the homeless woman who was defending Trump's star on the Walk of Fame, and a whole crowd surrounded her, and some very, very brave, not homeless people decided to mess with her stuff and beat her down until she was on the ground, curled in a fetal position. And these are people that said, "Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy." So this was a person that they thought was crazy, and they did this to her.
Looking into that a little more, because from last I saw that her clothes were spotless and brand new kind of thing, and it might have been one of those staged disturbance events. So that one in particular with the homeless lady, I would suggest looking a little more into it, since more.
I saw that video. Her clothes were not spotless, but I have run into homeless people whose clothes look just the same as anybody else's. Not everybody is, especially with women, not every homeless person is unsheltered. A lot of them do live in shelters. They do have the ability to get clean clothes. Some of them work, but don't have enough of an income to pay for a place to live. Being homeless doesn't necessarily mean being dirty or drunk or stoned or any of that.
But this
so
is sort
it's
of
entirely the thing is, saying that it's fake because her clothes didn't look raggedy is kind of iffy. And there were 3 videos of this. It was 3 videos long, and it just for this to be fake, I would need a lot more proof than that.
Well, regardless, it's more than we really have time for right now, or the resources. So
the last thing I wanted to say is about with regards to all these reports, and there's more of them coming out all the time. This is coming from a culture that celebrates and uplifts victimhood. So when people write, if you're part of that, it's easy for you to say, well, here's a terrible thing that happened to me. And you get sympathy points, and you get retweeted, and you get shared, and then it goes to the news and all this, and it could be a lie. But the point is not to tell the truth. The point is to get the most sympathy from the most people in your bubble. And I think this is why people do that. I mean, why they lie. In the cases where they do. If they're not lying and it's true, then, by all means we should spread it. But you have to separate the bullshit from the truth. And there's a lot of bullshit, and there's a lot of reason to use it, because when you're working from the assumption that if Trump is a racist, bigoted, misogynist, white supremacist, homophobe, transphobe, whatever, and his supporters, because they voted for them, the only explanation could be that they also believe in those things, even though they don't. Then now you have to take it to the next level. Okay, so if we know they're that way, and we know that there are that many people in the country, then they must also, they must also be ever present, and they must be a threat. It's the new they're here, they're among us, and and they could attack us anytime, and we can lie about it.
All right, but Karen, we gotta wind down,
Right.
Pull into the station, relax.
No.
Little bit.
Can't.
Okay, all right. So we
I'm
got a
hearing
question.
else. God damn it, Brian! Shut your dog up.
Yeah, your dog's nails are like.
I sorted my dog.
You sounds like you're in a secretary pool, Brian. It's your dog, Karen. Mute.
No, now it's mine.
Ocelot. Is HBR really going to gain any more traction under Trump than before? My guess would be no. in terms of actually addressing these issues, which I think are foundational to a lot, even foundational to a lot of the things that other supposedly unrelated political viewpoints talk about, I don't think that we're necessarily going to get more traction under Trump. He's going to have his own shit to worry about, just dealing with. I'm thinking we're probably dealing with a countdown to the first sexual assault accusation or multiple. Because I'm pretty sure this is okay. Who's playing the fucking grater while I'm talking?
Not me.
I think it might be you, Hannah.
It's actually my mouse, probably, that you're hearing.
Oh, okay. Because it sounds like somebody's like grating a very small wooden piece of cheese. And it's actually really distracting. But
Okay.
to answer your question, I'm not sure if we would get more traction. Unless Trump is going to call us up and say, hey, what are your thoughts on these issues? Brian, go ahead.
All right, can you guys hear me? I don't expect Trump to say, you guys should check out Honey Badger Radio. They're great. I don't expect that to happen. But I do think that the people that elected him represent a group of people who have decided, at least not in its entirety, but at least in part, that they are sick of the way that they're getting their information. Yeah.
The narrative is not reality.
Yeah, and they are hungry for the facts. And they were at least hungry enough for the facts. And there's a lot of... Because here's the thing. The mainstream media, this is not... I think that ultimately this has nothing to do with policy and nothing to do with politics in terms of the why people are celebrating. It doesn't even have to do with triggered social justice warriors. This, I think, mostly has to do with the media. The mainstream media has been crushed. They have done everything in their power to stop this man, and none of it worked. He went all the way and won, despite everything they did. In fact, if they would have not covered him in the same way they did Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, they probably would not have, he wouldn't have succeeded. And if they weren't complicit in what happened to Bernie Sanders, then that would have also probably resulted in a different outcome. So this is proof that the mainstream media, people are sick of them. They're sick of hearing their bullshit. They have accepted that there is, in fact, a real liberal media presence. And it is all the media that's not right-wing media, which is a large percentage of it. They have also gotten sick of fucking celebrities telling them what to do and who to vote for, because they don't have... They're full of shit, too, and they don't know what they're talking about. There was, as an example... Joss Whedon put together a video where he had all the people who had acted in his films in one way or another recommend that people vote Hillary Clinton. And he did it in a humorous way, right? Nobody liked this video. It was fucking annoying. And it was like you felt like you were being talked down to, like you were a child that needed to be told how you should vote. It was clear propaganda. And regular people put a video together in the same format responding to that video where they say, oh, all these famous actors have come out and they have told us who we should vote for. Thanks, famous actors. I never would have known there was an election this year. And they, just gave it right back to them. And at the end, they were just like, we don't need you. Thanks for nothing. This is a symbol. This means that people want new information. They're looking for stuff from somewhere else. They're tired of the mainstream. And this is good because... yes, like all of the other alternative media sources like InfoWars and Steven Crowder and even the Young Turks, they're all changing they see this as an opportunity to make their platforms grow. And I think that's because a lot of people watch them. And I think that their numbers are growing. I think that could benefit us as well. And people who talk about the things that we talk about. It's not going to be massive because there is a sort of... there's a hump to get over. It's the gynocentric hump. But I think that there are more people, that are looking into this. In fact, more women, I believe, more women voted for Trump than Clinton this year. It was like 45% women voted for Trump. And that's saying something considering the rape accusations and the misogyny and all these accusations. They were able to figure out that, at least from the women that voted for Trump, they were able to figure out without too much trouble that grabbing me by the pussy is indeed locker room talk, and that they accept that they have heard it before and have done it themselves, and they don't think it's a big deal. And they've also figured out that when he said only Rosie O'Donnell, he meant only Rosie O'Donnell. So that says something. I think that gives me hope, because I think that, we can break the narrative. We can actually have these conversations. I think that's a good thing. Fuck the mainstream media.
Okay, the final thing that I would say to Ocelot is I think that Trump represented something that could offer a legitimate motive to people to oppose the kind of gynocentrism, as Brian said, but the kind of focusing and centering of women in the narrative. And that's the focusing and centering of the requiring of resources. But that's something that's a little bit more complicated. I'm going to talk about it probably on Monday, maybe on Teal Deer's channel. So look for it then. And now I'm going to usher you guys out to the end. And those of you who in our audience who are patrons, you can look forward to some additional conversation about items that Brian has ferreted out in our after show patron chats. And if you want to become a patron and take part, that is getting to talk with us about additional items, patron-only items, on the patron-only after chat. You can go to www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio and become one. And that would be awesome, because you can spend more time with us. And Hannah,
is there a shill? I think Mike had to do it or something.
Is there a shill? Mike, do you have a shill?
Oh, I was going to say I have a shill for the thing that we talked about with the show.
Yes. Do this.
Okay. There is a documentary in the works on circumcision that is seeking funding. Now, it's currently at its funding goal, but we know that with Kickstarter, if enough funders, if enough backers don't go through, if they back out, or for whatever reason it doesn't go through, that they end up under their funding goal, they won't get their money. So I would still encourage people who haven't donated it to it, if they get a chance to do so. This is American Circumcision, and it's going to be an informative documentary on the subject. The project name is American Circumcision, and so if you search that on Kickstarter, it should get you to that. But if you can't find it that way, the documentarians are on Twitter. Their Twitter handle is at CIRC movie, all one word, Circ movie. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at that. And there's a video on the site if you want to see what they're putting together. And I would encourage, even if it's just like $5, that's really all I was able to afford to do at this time. But I would encourage everybody that can to, again, go to the American Circumcision Kickstarter and donate. If you can't donate, share it so that other people will see it, so that other people who can donate will.
Thank you, Hannah. And just to answer a question I saw in chat, the amount to take part in the first tier of After Show patron chats is $7.50 for 6 episodes. And if you want to take part in all of the After Show patron chats, it's $15 for 6 episodes. So go to Patreon and pledge that amount, and you get to enjoy our extra bonus content. Which what are we going to be talking about tonight, Brian?
Well, I want to go through. There's the election butthurt of Tumblr, and then there's the election. Then there's Reddit. It's also
awesome.
Had a meltdown. Yeah. So.
Oh, fuck! All the meltdowns.
Yeah,
okay.
I can finish Twitter off too. All right. We done?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. Good night, guys.